the database server. So generally, generally, so in any of the technology, so we can develop the project here. So simply we can say this is the front-end application. So where we can develop some forms here. So some UI. So I can call it as user interface. You can call it as user interface. So from the user interface, so we are going to send the data. So that is nothing but form data, we can say. So we can use data. So data must be traveled. The data must be traveled to the database here. So let us assume. So we can assume this is the database. So I can say this is database here. So this is database. This is our database. So we have so many databases like MySQL and Oracle. Oracle. So MySQL, Oracle. For this segment. Yes, MySQL, MySQL, and so, yeah, oh, with the form, yeah, MySQL and Oracle and Sybase, Sybase as well as SQLite and SQL Server and XSR. So there are so many softwares as the databases. There are so many softwares are databases are available. So MySQL, Oracle, Sybase, SQLite, and SQL Server. So these are the databases, and we have the user interface. The generally user interface is developed by using so HTML technologies, HTML, so CSS, and somehow we'll use JavaScript and somehow we'll use other technologies also for demonstrating the user interface. So from the user interface, so we will send the data to the backend. So we will send the data to the backend here. So the transformation of the data from the front end or user interface to database, we use JDBC. We use JDBC. So in between the user interface and the database, we will use the JDBC API. We will use the JDBC API. So this JDBC API is responsible to capture the data from the user interface or Java program. So user interface or Java program. So by using this JDBC API, so we can collect and we can communicate with any of the database servers. So based on the requirement, we are going to use either we can use a MySQL or Oracle or Sybase or SQLite or SQL Server. So we can use. So by using JDBC API, so we can communicate with any database server. So why we need to communicate with the database server? So because in the projects, so we are going to store the data actually. So we're going to store the data inside the database. So to store and manipulate the data in the database, so mandatory that we should use the JDBC. So the project entire data will be stored in the database. So that is the reason why we should connect with the database server by using JDBC. So it is from the Java people. So Java is nothing but a collection of predefined code. That means the code is already available. So that the API is nothing but collection of predefined classes. The API is nothing but a collection of packages. So I will explain what is JDBC exactly. So I'll take another picture here. So simple. No, simple. I'll save this file so before I start it. So next, so some new folder two. So first untitled one. So today's session about JDBC introduction. So that is nothing but JDBC is nothing but API. So API stands for Application Programming Interfaces. Is contains some classes. So I'll use a class name called as a driver manager, and oh, this is the most important class, and I'll use the interfaces, set of interfaces, the driver, and and connection, and the statement, and the statement, and a prepared statement, and result set, and result set. So these are the predefined classes and interfaces from the JDBC API. So again, SQL exception. Again, so SQL exception, SQL exception. So exception class. So these are the predefined interfaces and classes from the so Java.SQL package. So all these interfaces and classes are available inside. So one package called as Java.SQL package. So this SQL package is called as JDBC API. Is called as JDBC API. So these are the interfaces, and this is the class, and this is the exception. So while developing the application, so we will use these interfaces and classes and exception. So these are interfaces. These are interfaces. And this is nothing but class. This is nothing but class. And this is nothing but exception. This is nothing but exception. So entire this interfaces, classes, and exception is called as API. Is called as API. So entire this one is called as API. So JDBC API we call it. JDBC API. So JDBC API, we call it. So JDBC API. So the JDBC API is nothing but a set of interfaces, class, and a set of interfaces, class, and exception. So by using JDBC, what we can do? So we can communicate with a database server. We can communicate with a database server. So which database we should connect? Any databases we can connect. So there are so many database servers are available. So like MySQL, SQL Server, SQLite database, so something MongoDB. So there are so many database servers are available in the market. By using this JDBC, so we can communicate with any database server. That is our main motto. So in JDBC API, we have set of interfaces. We have set of interfaces and the state classes and exception. So what are the interfaces are important, and what is the class name, and what is the exception are important are? So driver, connection, statement, prepare statement, and result set. And the class name is driver manager class, and the exception name is SQL exception. So these are the things we are going to use to communicate with the database server by using the JDBC API, right? So what is the next step in the JDBC to connect with the database server? So first of all, we should know about all the class name and the interface name. After knowing the class names and interface names, so we can able to communicate with the database server. So right, so next I am moving to the next step. So what are the things are needed so to communicate with the database server from the Java program? So first of all, JDBC contains five major steps. JDBC contains five major steps. So if you follow these steps, so you can easily communicate with any database server. You can communicate with any database server. The first step, the first step. So step one, step one. So first step. So you can use in the first step, you can use so register the driver, register the driver. So I'll statement repeat again. So register the driver. This is the first step. And coming to the second step. Coming to the second step. So in the second step, we will establish the connection. 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 So there are five steps in JDBC programming. So if you follow this five statements, you can communicate with any database server. In the first step, register the driver. In the second step, establish the connection. And coming to the third step. So it is about create statement object. Create statement object. Create statement object. So by using the statement object, we can perform something. So and finally, after statement object is created, so I'll go for execute the query. I'll go for execute the query actually. I'll go for execute the query. And last step, we should close the connection. We should close the connection. So if you follow these statements, if you follow these five steps, so you can easily communicate with any database server. You can easily connect with any database server. So by connecting to the server, so we can store the data into the database. We can store the data into the database. So there's only five steps you need to follow. The first one is register the driver. The second one is establish the connection. And the third one is create a statement object. And the fourth one is execute the query. And the fifth one is close the connection. So we'll discuss one by one. So what are the things are available in order to establish the connection with the database server? So in order to register the driver, we should know the driver information. We should know the driver information. We should know the driver information. In order to establish the connection, so we need to have three details. We need to have three details. Those are nothing but those are nothing but so we need the URL. We need the URL. So first we need driver class name. We need driver class name. So we need driver class name to register the driver. We need a driver class name to register the driver. And, and so we need the URL. We need the URL, comma, username, comma, password. Username, URL, password. So to establish the connection, we should know all these details. We should know all these details. To register the driver, we should know the driver class name. To register the driver, we should know the driver class name. To establish the connection, we should know the URL, username, and password. URL, username, and password. So if you know these details, you can register the driver and establish the connection. So after establishing the connection, so you can perform the operations. You can perform the operation by creating the statement object. But these are important. These are important. So what are the important things? A driver, class name, URL, username, and passwords are important. So these details are belongs to database. This the information is belongs to database providers. This information is belongs to database providers. From database to database, from database to database, these details are going to be changed. These details are going to be changed. So the driver class name and the URL, username, password. The driver class name, URL, username, and passwords are vary from database to database because we are communicating with multiple databases or any of the database servers by using single Java interface, by using single Java interface. So JDBC are five steps. Register the driver, establish the connection, create the statement object, execute the query, and close the connection. In order to register the driver, we should know the driver name. In order to establish the connection, we should know the URL of the database as well as username of the database as well as password of the database. So let us assume I would like to communicate with a database called as MySQL. I would like to communicate with a database called as MySQL. So, sir, then, so I should know aware of MySQL driver class name, MySQL URL name, MySQL username, and MySQL password. So if you know the MySQL username, MySQL password, and MySQL URL and the MySQL driver class, so you can communicate with MySQL database. Suppose let us assume. So instead of MySQL, I would like to communicate with MongoDB. I would like to communicate with MongoDB. So you should know of MongoDB driver class name, MongoDB URL, MongoDB username, and MongoDB password. So if you know these details, you can communicate with MongoDB with the JDBC API. Suppose if I want to communicate with SQLite, if I want to communicate with SQLite, so then you should know about SQLite driver class name, SQL URL, and SQL username and password. Then you can communicate with SQL database actually. So in our class, I would like to communicate with MySQL. I would like to communicate with MySQL so that I should know the driver class name of the MySQL, URL, username, password, sir, belongs to the MySQL. So first of all, we should can find out this information from the MySQL documentation. You can find these details in the MySQL documentation. So here I'm writing. So the data driver class name is com.mysql dot so jdbc dot jdbc dot so com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. So this is the driver class name. This is the driver class name of MySQL. This is the driver class name of the MySQL. This is the driver class name of the MySQL. So this is the driver class name of the MySQL. So com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. This is what driver class name of MySQL. Driver class name of MySQL. Driver class name of MySQL database server. Driver class name of MySQL driver. MySQL driver class name of MySQL database. So next, we should know about the URL, username, and password. So the URL is so JDBC colon MySQL colon double slash localhost localhost colon 3306 slash 3306 slash database name. So database name we should provide here. The database names are nothing but in MySQL or in every database we will create the tables. In every database we will create the tables. But in MySQL, so you should first create the database, then only we can able to create the tables. So that name we should provide here. That name we should provide here. So this is nothing but so MySQL URL. This is nothing but MySQL URL. So this is nothing but MySQL URL. URL. So this is nothing but URL of the MySQL. This is nothing but URL of the MySQL. URL of MySQL. URL of MySQL. And we have username and password also. And we have username and password also. By default, for every MySQL, the default name is root. By default, every MySQL, so the default name is root. The default name is root. So this is the username of MySQL. This is the username of the MySQL. This is the username of MySQL. Username of MySQL. Username of MySQL. So while installing the MySQL database, so it will ask about the password. So in my laptop, so I have an empty password. I have an empty password. In some other in some other laptop, so we have the root or personalized software. Root or personalized software. So you have to supply that password. So in in my so in my system so in my system, so I have an empty password. There is no password for my MySQL data. So I am supplying the empty space here. So I am supplying the empty space here. So this is empty. So this is empty. So my password is empty. So password of MySQL. Password of MySQL. So JDBC. So JDBC is nothing but Java database connectivity. So Java database connectivity. By using this JDBC, so we can communicate with any of the database server. We can communicate with any of the database server. So to communicate with the database server, so we have the JDBC API. The JDBC API is nothing but, so I'll show you. So JDBC API is nothing but so set of classes and interfaces. Set of classes and interfaces. You can find out the so diagram here. So this is the JDBC infrastructure. That is the architecture. By using the interface, so in middle of the interface and the database, we have the JDBC API. We have the JDBC API. So JDBC API is nothing but set of classes. Set of classes and interfaces. Set of classes and interfaces. These are nothing but from java.sql package. Java.sql package. So I will show you the package names and class names here. So go to the packages here. Go to the packages. The package name is java.sql package. So SQL package contains some of the interfaces and classes and exception. So the exception name is SQL exception. The exception name is SQL exception. And the class name is driver manager. The class name is driver manager. The class name is driver manager and the interface names are nothing but driver. Interface names are nothing but driver and the connection and another important so interface is called as a statement and another interface is called as a prepare statement and another interface name called as result set. So these are the interfaces and classes. These are the interfaces and classes from the so java.sql. So java.sql package. So what are the steps involved in the connecting the database is so the 5 steps are involved in the connecting with the database. So if you complete these 5 steps, so we can able to communicate with any database server so you can communicate with MySQL, you can communicate with MySQL, or you can communicate with Oracle, or you can communicate with SQLite, or you can communicate with the SQL Server, and etc. So there are so many database servers are available. So in my system, I would like to communicate with MySQL. I would like to communicate with MySQL database server. If I want to communicate with MySQL server or MySQL database, so we should know the driver class name, we should know the URL, we should know the username, and we should know the password. If you know these details, directly you can communicate with MySQL database server. So MySQL driver class name is com.mysql.cj.gdbc.driver. And the URL of the MySQL is jdbc colon mysql colon double slash localhost 3306 and the database name. So in this example, localhost is the IP address of the database server and 3306 is the port number of the database server. So in my system, the default username for each and every database users will have the root as the username and the password is nothing but so in my laptop it is an empty password. So in other systems and in your system. So you may have the password. That password you need to supply. So if you know these details, you can register the driver, you can establish the connection, you can create the statement object, or you can create execute the query and close the connection. Okay. So now what I will do is so I will write a program. So first, before I write the program, so first I'll open MySQL. First I'll open MySQL. So after opening the MySQL, so I will create a database first. I'll create database first. So open the MySQL. In the MySQL, I'll create database. I'll create database. After creating the database, you should create the table. You should create the table. You should create the table. After creating the table, you can do the operations from the JDBC. So first step is open the MySQL and create the database. And inside the database, create the table. And in the second step, what we are going to do is, so we are going to use, right, the second step. So we'll write Java program. We'll write Java program to establish the connection. To establish the connection, right? JDBC program or Java program. We'll write JDBC program. We'll write JDBC program, right, to establish the connection. And in the third session, in the third session, so we will perform code operations. We will perform code operations. We will perform code operations with the database. With database. So these are the motto of the class. These are the motto of the class. First, we should open the MySQL, and after opening the MySQL, you should create the database. So after creating the database, you should create the table. So after creating the table, you should write the JDBC program to establish the connection. So we will perform CRUD operations with the databases. So coming to the point again, so to communicate with a database server, so we should follow these five steps. We should follow these five steps. So register the driver, register the driver, and establish the connection, create the statement object, execute the query, and close the connection. So these are the driver class name, URL, username, and password. So I'll write a JDBC program. I'll write JDBC program here. I'll write JDBC program here. So simply. So I'll take a new file here. I'll take a new file here. I'll save it as so desktop new folder. Then I'll save it as first JDBC. First JDBC.java. First JDBC.java. So in this folder, so I'll write public class first JDBC. First JDBC. Open the class I, close the case. Open the class I, close the case. Just a minute. Yes. So this is the program we are going to write JDBC program. So inside this, I'll write just a public static void main. Public static void main. Open the main method and close the main method. So this program is really responsible to establish the connection with the MySQL. So before I write the program, so what I need to do, so I would like to go to the MySQL. I would like to go to the MySQL and I should create the database. And inside the database, I should create the table. So I am using the software called as a Jump software, so which manages the MySQL, which manages the MySQL. You can find out MySQL here. You can start it. You can start it. So you can find out the port number called as 3306. You can find out the port number called as 3306 when it started. So our port number is 3306. So the same port number. The local host is IP address. The local host is nothing but IP address. So I'm able to successfully open the MySQL dashboard here. Open the MySQL. So you can say this is the MySQL dashboard. So just a minute, it is taking time. It is taking time. So this is the MySQL dashboard. You can find out the list of databases here. You can find out the list of databases here. You can create a new database. You can create new database. I'll continue with Kite. I'll continue with the Kite. So Kite is the database name I am using in the MySQL. Kite is the database name I'm using in MySQL. I'm creating the database. I'm creating the database. Inside the Kite, you can create the table. Inside the Kite, you can create the table to store the data. I'll continue with employee table. I'll continue with the employee table with with so five records or five columns with five columns. The first one is I'll create the kite as the database name here. So inside the kite, I'll create the table. The table name is nothing but employee. The table name is nothing but employee. So this is the free software for creating the tables and databases. So in that I'll use ID. In that use employee name. So employee name and I'll use employee address. I'll use employee address. I'll use employee mobile or email ID. Email ID. And I'll use employee salary and employee salary. So salary in the form of float or double you can use float or double. So email in the form of text or varchar. Text or varchar. Address in the format of varchar. Address in the format of varchar. Address in the format of varchar. Just a moment. Varchar. And name is also in the form of varchar. The size of the columns. The size of the columns you should specify. I'll continue ID for 3 and the name must be 15 or less than or 15. So address is also like 20 or 50 characters, and the email should be like 15 characters, and no need to mention the salary length. So I'll saving here. So employee table is created with following with these columns: ID, name, address, email, and salary. ID, address, name, email is the salary. The database name is kids. So kite. The database name is kite. So inside the kite, I have created employee table. Inside the kite, I have created the employee table. It contains five or columns: ID, name, address, email, and salary. So I would like to develop a Java program. I would like to develop a Java program. So by using this Java program, so I should come get the connection with the MySQL. In the MySQL database, I would like to perform the code operation by using the JDBC program. So first step, what is the first step of JDBC? The first step is nothing but register the drive. The first step is nothing but register the driver. To register the driver, to register the driver, so we have to register the driver. So we have so driver class name here. We have driver class name here. So what is the driver class name? Com dot mysql dot cj dot gdbc dot driver. So what is the first name? What is the first step? JDBC API to communicate with the database server. We will use these five steps. The first step is nothing but the first step is nothing but register the driver. The first step is nothing but register the driver. The first step is nothing but register the driver. The first step is nothing but register the driver. To register the driver, to register the driver. So we have a class. So we have already have a class called as so driver class name com dot mysql dot jdbc dot drive. To register the driver, so we have a class name called as com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. So I have an API, so java.sql package. Inside the java.sql package, there is a class called as driver package. There is a class called as driver manager. Inside the driver manager, we have some methods. We have some method. The method name is called as register the driver. The method name is called as register the driver. So which is a static method. So that I can say driver manager dot register driver. Driver manager dot register driver. So we need to supply. So we need to supply the object of driver implementation class. Driver implementation class, that is com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. So I'm supplying the same class name here, new com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver, jdbc dot driver. So this is nothing but step. So this is nothing but step one. What is the step one? Register the driver. Register the driver. So there are five steps. There are five steps. The first step is register the driver. The step is register the driver. To register the driver, we have driver class name, that is com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot drive. So we have a class called as a driver manager class. We have class called as driver manager class. Inside the driver manager class, I have the a method called as register driver, which is a static, which is a static method. So that is the reason why. So I call that method by using the class name. I call that method by using the class name, register the driver. So by supplying the class. So by with this, we done with step. Next step. Next is what? Step two. So what is step two? Establish the connection. What is steps to establish the connection? So, in order to establish the connection, so we have a URL called as, we have URL called as, we have URL called as JDBC colon, JDBC colon, MySQL colon, localhost 3306 database name. So here the database is nothing but kite. Here the database which I created. So previously nothing but kite. Previously is nothing but kite. So instead of database name, so we can use the kite. So, and again, I have another method called as get connection. I have another method called as get connection. So get connection takes URL, username, and password. URL, username, and password. So we know the URL, we know the username, we know the password, so that you can get the connection from the static method of driver manager. From the static method of driver manager. So simply I can write driver manager dot get connection. Driver manager dot get connection. So within this or to this method, I'll supply to this get connection method, to this get connection method, I'll supply three parameters. I'll supply three parameters. So that is nothing but URL, username, and password. URL, username, and password. The three parameters I'm going to supply. The three parameters are available. The URL is nothing but JDBC colon, MySQL colon, localhost 3306 database name, and the root is the password, and root is the password. So simply within the single quote, or you can use some string variable, or you can use some string variable. So URL, so URL is nothing but com dot so JDBC colon, JDBC colon, MySQL colon, double slash, local host colon, 3306 slash, what is the database name? I have created the kite database. I have created the database name is kite. I have created the database name is kite in the database here. You can find out the kite database here. Inside the kite database, you have the employee table. You have the employee table. Inside the employee table, so we have these columns. We have these columns. So next, the URL is completed. I will use another variable called as username. Another variable called as username. So in my laptop, the username is root. In my laptop, the username is root. Now in my laptop, the username is root. So what is the username here? Root is the username. So next, we should use the password. Next, we should use the password. The password is nothing but so empty in my laptop, empty in my laptop. So password equals to empty. Password equals to empty. So these are the three details are required. These are the three details are required to establish the connection with the JDBC with the MySQL. So I'll supply URL and comma username and password And the return type of this method is connection. And the return type of this method is connection variable. So this is the first step, register the driver, and this is the second step is called as establishing the connection. Establishing the connection with MySQL, with MySQL database, with MySQL database. To establish the connection with the MySQL, so we need a URL, we need username, we need a password. The URL is nothing but JDBC colon MySQL colon 3306 and kite. And the username is root and the password is empty. So after the connection is completed, so we should check whether connection is getting correctly or not. To check the connection, I'll write just system.out.println. System.out.println. So system.out.println. So connection is I'll display the connection variable. I'll display the connection variable here. So I have a first JDBC program. I have a first JDBC program, that is first JDBC.java. First JDBC.java is available inside the folder called as desktop and new folder 2. Desktop and new folder 2. So in order to execute this file, we have to open the command prompt in the same location. Command prompt in the same location. I'll supply Java C for compilation. The first JDBC.java. First JDBC.java. So there are some errors. There are some errors because we are using the class names called as a driver manager. We are using the interface name is connection. We are using the interface name is connection. So first we should import the packages. We should import the packages. So errors because of the package. So we should import the package called as java.sql.driver manager. We should import driver manager. We should import and import java.sql dot connection. Java.sql dot connection also we should import because we are using the predefined classes and interfaces. So mandatory that we need to import. So after importing the packages, so we should save the file. Again, we should go to the console. We should go to the console. After go to the console, again I'm compiling. Again I'm compiling. So the com.mysql.cj.jdbc driver is not available. It is not available. So this is available because of something. So because of something. So I'll copy MySQL connector Java. MySQL connector Java. So this is the file actually. This is the jar file. So we can say this is the jar file. This is the jar file. So what is jar file is Java archive file. What is the file name? Jar file. So jar file. So what is the jar file name? So MySQL dot jar file. MySQL dot jar file. MySQL dot jar file. It contains classes. It contains classes. It contains what? Classes. So what are the classes? Only dot class files. Only dot class files. Only dot class files. I will show you the dot class files. The error is nothing but com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. It is not available. It is not exist. This class is available inside this jar file. This class is available inside this jar file. So just select and extract it. Select and extract the jar file. So you can find out com folder. You can observe the folders are extracted from the jar file. So com dot mysql dot cj dot com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot cj dot jdbc dot driver dot class file here. Driver dot class file here. You can find out driver dot class file. You can find out driver class file. So in the jar file, you can find out only the class files here. You can observe the type of the classes. You can type of the format. So all are class files only. All are dot class files only. So you can find out driver class file. So basically the package, the new com.mysql.cj.jdbc. Driver is from the jar file. So this driver implementation class is from jar file, is from jar file. That jar file is nothing but mysql.jar, mysql.jar. You can download this jar file from the internet. You can download the jar file from the internet. You can download this jar file from the internet. So if I want to execute the program, if I want to execute the program, so mandatory we need a jar file. Mandatory we need a jar file. So what is the jar file name is nothing but so MySQL connector Java, MySQL connector Java dot jar file. This is the jar file. This is the jar file. The jar file contains the implementation class name. Implementation class name. So what I need to do is if I compile like this, so you will get an errors like this package does not exist. This package is available within the jar file. So we need to set the class path. We need to set the class path. Set class path equals to MySQL connector Java. MySQL connector Java dot jar file. Java dot jar file. After setting a class path, you can compile the JDBC program. You can compile the JDBC program. Again, three errors are occurred. Again, three errors are occurred because of the exceptions. Because of the exception. So just simply write throws keyword, just to simply write throws keyword exception, throws keyword exception. After writing this statement, you will not get any error message. You will not get any error message. So compilation successfully. So compiled successfully. Compiled successfully. So after compilation, you will get the dot class file here. You will get the dot class file here. So you can execute the program. You can execute the program now. Java space first JDBC. Java space first JDBC. Java space first JDBC. Java space first JDBC. So public class first JDBC. Public static void main string args throws. So instead of throws exception, I'll continue with try and catch. I'll continue with try and catch. So all the statement I'll cut from here. All the statement I'll cut from here. All the statement I'll cut from here. So after that I'll write catch. After that I'll write try and catch. After that I'll try and catch exception I'll write here. Exception I'll write here. Exception we open the catch and close the catch. In between this e dot print stop stress. E dot print stop trace. E dot print stop trace. So within the try I'll paste the code. Within the try I'll paste the code. Within the try I'll paste the code here. So this is the step one. This is the step one. So driver manager dot get connection. Sorry, driver manager dot register driver. Driver manager dot register driver. So for registering the driver, for getting the connection with and the second step, establishing the connection. So after the establishing the connection, I am using the print of the connection. I'm using the print of the connection here. So for that, I'm going to compile first jdbc.java and first jdbc could not go. Just a minute. Right, the problem with the format, I think. Uh, CMD5. Seven. The command prompt. Java space. Today Java. Okay. Set class for equals to MySQL. So semicolon, that's semicolon. Java master. Java space first. Yeah, got the output. So just observe. So I'll delete the dot class file. I'll delete the dot class file. Go to the command prompt. So Java C space first to, sorry again, Java C space first to the JDBC dot Java and Java space first J. So the connection is com.mysql.jdbc.connection IMPL. That means, so the successfully connection is able to establish. The connection is able to establish. For example, I'll supply the wrong URL. Suppose, for example, I supply the wrong URL. So if wrong URL is supplied, if the wrong URL is supplied, the connection will not get from the database. The connection will not get from the database. So it will give an error message that is SQL exception, no suitable driver found for JDBC colon or something which is not correct. So something like so this is not possible. This is not possible. So when you supply wrong data, suppose let us assume, so if I supply the correct URL and if I supply the wrong password, if I supply the wrong password, so then also you cannot able to so get the connection from the database. Again, it will give the exception. Access denied for user. root password equals to S. Password equals to S. So that means you should supply the valid details. Suppose let us assume instead of root, I'll supply root 123. So root 123. So then also you cannot able to get the connection from the database by using Java. So access denied for the user at the database. So this is a for each and every step is important and each and every values are important. You need to supply the correct values. You need to supply the correct values. Then only you can able to get the connection from the database. You can able to get the connection from the database Java C and Java test. So this is the connection result. This is the connection result. But JDBC is 5 steps, no? So we have successfully completed. So we have successfully completed 2 steps. That is step one and step two is completed. So next one is step three. Next one is step three. We should create the statement objects. We should create the statement object. The statement object can be created. The statement object can be created. So as a second step here, 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 as a second step here. So what is the second step? Create statement object. Create statement object. To create the statement object, we will use the connection. We will use the connection object. We will use the connection object. So con dot create statement. Con dot create statement. Con dot create statement. So return type is statement. Return type is statement STFT. Return type is statement STFT. So return type is statement. This statement is also available in so java.sql package. So we should import it. So java.sql.statement. Java.sql.statement. So after that, the third statement is complete. After that, the start statement is completed. So what are the fourth step? We should execute the query. We should execute the query. We should execute the query. To execute the query, so we have couple of queries. We have couple of queries. So we have create query. We have create query. So we have insert query and we have update queries. We have update queries. We have delete queries. We have alter. We have alter queries. So we have truncate. We have truncate and we have something rename. We have something rename and etc. So we have rename and etc. So these are the a couple of queries we use within the database. We have couple of queries we use in the database as well as there is one more query. There is one more query that is nothing but select. There is one more query that is nothing but select. So there are two types of queries. The first one is there are two types of queries. There are two types of queries. The first one is create, insert, update, delete. The second one is select. Second one is selector. So all the queries are categorized into two types. All the queries are categorized into two steps. So one is select query and another one is non-select queries. So one is select query and another one is non-select queries. For select queries, we use a method called as execute query method. We'll use a method called as execute query method. So for non-select queries, we use a method called as execute update. For non-select query, we use a method called as execute update. Execute update method. Execute update method. So execute update and execute query are belongs to execute update and execute query are these two belongs to execute the query. Two belongs to the fourth step or belongs to fourth step. Either you can use execute query or you can use execute update or you can use execute update. So you can use execute query or you can use execute update. So if you use any of these, so that is nothing but step four. That is nothing but step four. So what is my requirement? I have database name called as kite. I have database name called as kite. So inside the kite database, I have employee table. I have employee table. So employee table contains ID, name, address, and email. ID, name, address, and emails are the columns. What I would like to do is I would like to insert the data. I would like to insert the data into this table. I would like to insert the data into the table. So for that, I am going to use create query. For that, I am going to use create query. I am going to use create query. Sorry, I am going to use insert query. I am going to use insert the query. So insert query I am going to use. If it is insert query, so which method we should use? We should use execute update method. So we should use which method? Execute update method. So I would like to insert the data. For inserting the data, I'll use insert query. For insert query, we should use the execute update. We should use execute update. That is step four. That is what step four, execute the query. That is what execute the query. So I am writing step four. I'm writing what? Step four. I'm writing step four. Execute the query. Execute the query. For execute the query, so we use statement object. We use statement object dot execute execute update because there are only two methods. There are only two methods. Either you can use execute update or execute query. For select queries only, we will use execute query. For non-select queries, we should use execute update. We should use execute update. So I am going to use execute update for inserting the data. So in which table? Employee table of kite. Employee table of kite. So what employee table contains? ID, name, address, email, salary. ID, name, address, email, and salary. So let us take an example. Let us take an example. I'll write query here. I'll write query here. So query equals to, so query equals to, so insert into, what is the table name? Employee. What is the table name? Employee values. What the values? How many values we have? Totally five values. One is ID, two is name, three is address, four is email, and five is salary. And five is salary. So I'll use ID is nothing but 101. I'll use ID is nothing but 101. So I'll supply name as employee 101. Employee 101. So after that, I'll supply the address. The address is nothing but Hyderabad. Address is nothing but Hyderabad. And after that, I'll supply the email. I'll supply the email. So EMP 101. So I'll supply the email. So EMP 101 at the rate gmail.com. At the rate gmail.com. And after that, I'll supply the salary. I'll supply the salary. So let us take an example. I'll supply 36,000. I'll supply 36,000. So this is about ID. This is about ID, and this is about name of the employee, and this is about the address of the employee, and this is about email ID, and this is about salary. This is about salary. ID, name, address, email, and salary. I have supplied from the query. So this query should be supplied to the execute update. That query should be supplied to the execute update. Execute update. So return type is in the status. Return type is integer. Return type is integer. So first step is register driver. The second step is establishing the connection. The third step is create the statement object. The fourth step is execute the query. And finally, so if status, if status greater than zero, if status greater than zero, so it should display system.out.println. So system.out.println. So the insertion is successful. So employee insert is successful. Is successful. Insert success is successful. If it is not greater than zero, if it is not greater than zero, so system dot out dot println. System dot out dot println. So fail to insert, try again. Fail to insert, try again. You can display. Fail to insert, try again. So employee insertion or employee insert is successful or fail to insert, try again. So this is the about fourth step. And finally, fifth step. Step fifth. Finally, again, fifth step. So what is the fifth step? Close the connection. Close the connection. Close the connection. So in order to close the connection, we use the connection object. We use the connection object, and after that, we use a method called as close. We use a method called as close. So this is about JDBC program. This is about JDBC program. The step one is register the driver. The second one is establishing the connection. The third one is create the statement object. Fourth one is execute the query. And the fifth one is close the connection. Fifth one is close the connection. So now you can able to insert the data by using the Java program. So before executing the program, verify whether data is available or not. Select the star from employee. So no data is available. No data is available. Go to the command prompt. So just compile. Just compile. So string literal Hyderabad. Just a minute. Problem with like this. Now save the file. Save the file. Go to the command prompt. Go to the command prompt. So cls java c first j dot java and java space first j. So before we execute, verify any data is available. Any data is available or not. So no data is available. So just execute the file. So just execute the file. So data too long for column email. So data two column for email. So what we are going to do is, so there is more than 15 characters. I'll continue with e101 at the rate gmail.com. E101 at the rate gmail.com. So Java C and Java first. So employee insertion is successful. Employee insert is successful. So if you go to the database and check for the employee data, so you can find out the data here. You can find out the same data here. Suppose let us assume I would like to insert one more record. I would like to insert one more record. So what we need to write? Again, we need to write the same fifth statement. Again, we need to write same fifth statement. No change in the program. No change in the program. So just to modify the values. Just to modify the values. Employee 101. So this is from Kakinada. Suppose let us assume this is from Kakinada and employee 102. Employee 102. The salary is double 72,000. 72,000. So save the file and go to the command prompt. So CLS Java C for first day Java at Java space first. So employee insert is successful. Employee insert is successful. Go to the browser, sorry, go to the command prompt. So Java C first dot Java. So go to the database table here. So again, 102, employee 102, Kakinada. So the role salary is updated. Salary is updated. So now this is about JDBC connection. This is about JDBC connection and will interact with the database server. Will interact with the database server and you can insert the value. So not only insert the values, not only insert the values, you can create the table, you can insert the values, you can update the values, you can delete the values, you can alter the values, you can truncate the variable, you can also select. You can also select the values. Suppose let us assume. Suppose let us assume. I would like to update. I would like to update the values. So for update also, you can write the same. For update also, you should write the same code. Nothing is changed there. So just a minute. I'll use a new file here. I'll use a new file here. So public class update records. Class update records. So this is about update records. This is about update record. Open the class and close the class. Open the class and close the class. So just copy and save the program here and save the program here dot Java dot Java. So within the same main method, we'll write public static void main public static void main string args. So string args. Open the main method and close the main method. So the first step, the step one is what? Register the driver. Register the driver. Register the driver. To register the driver, the same class called as a driver manager dot register driver. Register driver. So within this method, we need to supply the same component. So com dot mysql dot so cj dot jdbc dot driver. jdbc dot driver we need to supply. So first step is completed. The second step, so the second step is nothing but establish the connection, establish the connection, establish the connection, establish the connection. So driver manager. So driver manager dot get connection. Driver manager dot get connection. We have to supply three values. The first one is URL JDBC colon MySQL colon double slash localhost colon 3306 slash there is a database called as kite comma username. The default username is root comma the password is empty. The password is empty. The second step is completed. The second step is completed. The return type is connection. The return type is connection. The return type is connection. So all these statements should write inside the try block. All these statements should write inside the try block. So try open. So inside the try block, I'm going to write. So catch. So exception. So we are not covered this exception topic. So we will discuss. We will discuss. So as of now, so just observe the exception handling. So try and catch. So printer stop press. So printer stop press. So after connection, the second step is connection, and the second step is completed. You can create the statement. You can create the statement. That is nothing but step three. That is nothing but step three. That is nothing but step three. The step three is nothing but create a statement object. Create a statement object. Create statement object. Con dot con dot create statement. Con dot create statement. So return type is a statement. Return type is statement. stmt. And and so third statement is also completed. Next, fourth statement. So what is the fourth statement? So execute the query. Execute the query. So I would like to update now. I would like to update now. So first example I have completed with insert. Now I would like to update. So what I would like to update? I would like to update first salary for 60,000 from 36,000 to I would like to update 60,000. So next I'll use this statement. So stmt dot execute execute update execute update. So within this, I'll write as a statement update update. So which one should update? The salary should be update. So employee update employee set salary set salary equals right set salary equals to 60,000, the new value I am going to supply. Where condition I'm going to use, where ID equals to 102, where ID equals to 102 or 101. So ID equals to 101 year, ID equals to 101 year. So execute update always return, execute update always return integer. So I'll use the same status variable. I'll use the same status variable. So I use the same status variable. So I'll write just a command. If status greater than zero, if status greater than zero, so just write system dot update. The system dot out dot println. The system dot out dot println. So updation is successful. Updation is successful. Updation is successful. Updation is successful. If it is else, if it is else, updation is not successful. So updation is failed. So system dot out dot println. So system dot out dot println. So fail to update. Fail to update. So you can display a message called as try again. So fail to update, try again. So what is the last step? What is the last step? So step 5, close the connection. Step 5, close the connection. So step 5, close the connection. Step 5, close the connection. Close the connection. For that, we use connection object with the close method. Connection object with close method. So this is about update records. This is about insert record. The code is same. The code is same. Only change is query. Only change is query. Same register the driver, same getting the connection, same create statement, same execute update and same condition, and same close. So what is the change? The only change is the query. If you write insert query, this is insertion. If you write update query, this is update. This is update and this is insert. The remaining steps are common. Remaining steps are common. Same. So same register driver, same connection, same create statement, same close, and same execute update method only. So here we use execute update as well as for insertion also we use execute update. But only change is query we have to change. But only change is query we have to change. What is the query here? Update employee set salary equals to 60,000 where ID equals to 101. What is the class name here? Update records. So just go to Java C space update records dot Java. Java C space update record dot Java cannot find symbol. The symbol is driver manager. Actually, we forgot to import the package names. So import Java dot SQL dot star. The star means all the classes and interfaces we have imported. So next, clear the screen. So Java C update records dot Java and successfully compiled. So before executing the program. So before executing the program, so verify. So what is the data is available as the salary? What is the data is available for the salary? So 36,000 is available. 36,000 is available. I will execute the update records program. I will execute the update records program. So I got the message called as updation is successful. I got the message called as updation is successful. So next, we will verify the database whether it is updated or not. So you can observe the 60,000 is updated. You can observe the 60,000 is updated. You can observe the salary is 60,000. The salary is 60,000 here. So like that, you can write the program. So just observe, I'll copy the insert. I'll copy the insert program. I'll copy the insert program here. I'll copy the insert program. I'll copy the insert program. I'll copy the insert program. I'll paste in update. I'll paste in update here. I'll paste in update here. So what is the change? What is the change? Only query we should change. Only query we should change. The query is nothing but update employee, update employee, set salary equals to 90,000, where where ID equals to 101, where ID equals to 101. So instead of insert, I'll use update message. I'll use update message. I'll use update method. So instead of insert, fail to update. That's it. That's it. That's it. So now I'm going to update the 101 salary to 90,000. 90,000. So verify here. Java C update records, Java update records. So employee update is successful. Verify whether it is updated or not. So 90,000 is updated. Suppose I would like to delete. I would like to delete. The same program you can copy. The same program you can copy. Instead of update records, you can use delete records. You can use delete records. You have to save the file first. Delete records.java. Delete records.java. No need to change the driver registration. No need to change the established. No need to change the extra information. No need to change the create statement. No need to change the execute update. So instead of update query, we use delete query. So delete from employee, delete from employee. So where ID equals to 101, where ID equals to 101, employee deletion. I'll write employee deletion. I'll write employee deletion is successful. Fail to delete. Fail to delete. Try again. Employee deletion is successful. Fail to delete. So no need to change the remaining methods like establishing the driver class, establishing the connection, create the statement object, execute the query, and close the connection. The only change is we should change the query itself. We should change the query itself. So just run the program. So Java C space delete records.java and Java space delete records. Java space delete records. Java space delete records. Employee deletion is successful. Employee deletion is successful. So verify whether the data is deleted or not. So 101 is deleted, only 102 is available. The same code for deletion, the same code for update, the same code for insert, the same code for insert. Only change is query only change. For all these operation, for create, for insert, for update, for delete, for alter, for truncate, for rename, for all these queries, we'll use the same concept. We'll use the same concept. That concept is nothing but register the driver, establish the connection, create the statement object, execute the query, and close the connection. So JDBC are of these five steps. JDBC are of these five steps. So step one, register the driver. Step two, establishing the connection. Step three, create the statement object. Step 4 is execute the query and step 5 is close the connection. This is about JDBC. By using this JDBC, so you can able to find out. Suppose let us assume instead of MySQL, instead of MySQL, I would like to communicate with other database. So you have to change the database name, you have to change the URL, you have to change the username, you have to change the password. That's it. No need to change the remaining stuff. No need to change remaining stuff. So this is how the JDBC helps. This is how the JDBC helps to communicate with the database server and communicate with the database server and we can perform CORD operations. We can perform CORD operations. So what are the CORD operations? So insert, update, delete, alter, truncate, and select. So we will discuss this select in the next class. So what happens when we use the execute query? As of now, we have deal with only execute update. We have deal with only execute update. So in today's class, we have done with what is a JDBC. So JDBC is nothing but API. So API is nothing but something classes and interface names. Classes and interface names. So what are the classes are available? So we have the driver, we have the connection, we have the statement, we have the driver manager, and we have the SQL exception. This is nothing but API. So thank you. So we will wind up here. So we will continue tomorrow session. Thank you very much. Bye. So if you have any queries, you can ask anybody. I think no one is responding. Do you have any doubts regarding this topic JDBC? So if you have, you can ask anyone. Okay. So right. So I'll take a leave. So thank you. Bye bye.